everyone, this is Tribecast episode 28 and my name is Marina. And one of my favorite proverbs is to err is human. Therefore, being definitely humans, Tribecast team managed to lose one very interesting interview in the tons of already recorded and edited sound files. Since the emails with all the necessary apologies have already been sent and accepted, let me introduce to you the two guests of this week. First, Tuukka Ylälahti, with whom we have talked at Ship Startup Festival in Kotka, will share his entrepreneurship journey alongside with some great pitching tips and tricks. And secondly, Tribe Tampere event lead Valeriia Vasileva will invite you to join Sustainability Startup Weekend. My name is Marina, you're listening to Tribecast, so let's get started. So, we're continuing with our summer tour and we're in Kotka on Ship Festival and it's the second day of the festival and we're still enjoying it and we have more guests in our studio. Please tell our listeners a few things about yourself before we go to the actual serious talk.
Okay, so my name is Tuukka Ylälahti and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Mesensei. I'm what you could call a veteran startup entrepreneur. Mesensei is my second startup. The first startup co-founded was called Capforce. Mm-hmm. It was done in 2008. In 2009 we incorporated the company and sold it in 2015 to Cartroller Ireland with fairly substantial technology exit. And that gave me the inspiration to become the part of the startup community. And that led me here to Ship, the first time mentor here in 2016. And I've been here ever since, every year, and coming back and again and again.
Probably before we go to Ship, let's just talk a little bit more about your business. What's your startup is about?
Oh, Mesensei, it's a private social media platform that is designed for organizations that need to take control of their community data. Like, let's see that you have an organization like a City of Espoo or a high school, and the students want to collaborate with the alumni. So now the alumni need to be gathered somewhere. You would have to have a kind of like a platform where the people are. And there are many ways to go about it. If you go on public social media platforms, the problem is that it's quite fragmented. So the young kids are in the different social medias as the elders.
Yeah, there are too many of those nowadays.
And it's increasing. The fragmentation of social media space is increasing as we go on. Every single generation creates its new social media applications and there is increasing amount of diversity among it. But it creates two issues. One is that it's hard to collect your community together. But the secondary, it also creates an issue about data controllership. So if you have a valuable community, where do you host it? If you host it on other person's platform, then they are actually truly the data controllers. And this could be potentially difficult if you are a public institution. City of Espoo, Ministry of Treasury, organizations like this, they cannot put their personal sensitive data on US-driven companies due to the GDPR regulation that is increasingly becoming more focused on having the European data hosted in Europe, but also the use of the data. If it's sensitive data, like let's say children's discussions with NGOs and things like that, you don't want it to be mined by the algorithms creating personal profiles that are then sold on market for political purposes or financial gain.
That sounds really interesting and thank you for explaining and I wish you good luck with your startup.
Thank you.
And now let's talk about those young and hungry ones who are trying to push you out of the market.
Brilliant.
Like, the startups you talked with during Ship Festival as a mentor.
Yep.
Some general overview. What do you feel about the startups you mentored and you talked to? What are they like nowadays?
The community is moving forward every year. The level increases. Now we have a community. 2008 when I created my first startup, there was no community. There was no place to go and pitch for funding or join an accelerator or an incubator. There was virtually everything that we knew about startups back then was what we read from blogs of Silicon Valley. We didn't even become aware of Slush before, even though like we were literally across the street from organizers of Slush before first few years. So the speed that the community has built up and become a community that is contributing and moving forward the scene is extraordinary. It's actually quite short time, but then again it's quite long time depending on your perspective, like 10 years.
Yeah, true. And for our listeners, I would like to remind that the interview with one of the founders of Slush, Petter Westerbacka, can be heard in one of the previous episodes dedicated to Arctic 15. How about you tell a few things about your mentoring session during Ship Festival?
Sure.
What did you tell the young guys?
In such short time that you have in that session, I start from one question only. That is, what is the most burning question, most burning topic on your head? What keeps you awake at night at this stage? And usually the answer what they get leads you quite quickly to what stage the company is in, what are the challenges, what is the composition, and then I'll find the angle that I could be able to give at least one meaningful insight or or an advice or something.
So what kind of challenges do early stage, or not at early stage, startups face nowadays?
It's the same as always. It's about like the very definition.
Tell me something new.
It's a fundamental question. Every single startup starts from something that they need to do something. And because it's a startup, it is usually built around some kind of a competency. There is maybe a medical expert who wants to do something. So the startup has some strong competency to build an idea on, but it's fundamentally lacking the others. You might be missing a CTO, you might be missing funding, you might be missing all sorts of things. And the key to startup success is that how do you build up those competencies, how do you acquire those resources? In many markets it could be that it's easy to raise funding. Finland is not a very easy place to raise funding, at least substantially big funding to set up a big team and acquire every single resource that you would need. So in Finland, setting up a startup successfully is mostly down to bootstrapping and building a team of co-founders. And with very low burn rates, you try to sort of get to the stage that you have enough inertia to become funding eligible. So most of these challenges are same every year. Where do I get money? Where do I get the people? When I don't have the money, how do I get the money when I don't have a product because I don't have the people, and so forth and so forth. It's always that. And the answer that I usually give is that look into communities. Find out what kind of networks you can build, what kind of connections you can build. So if you cannot directly raise financial capital, start raising social capital. Make introductions, meet people, and through then these people you'll build up the networks behind which you can then find the resources and ultimately also the funding.
That's actually a very clear explanation. I should write it down and keep it in mind next time I'm pitching myself. Thank you. Unless it's copyrighted. I can give you some revenue for it. And I think one of the good places to network are those festivals.
Yes.
And I actually want to ask you, what do you find during startup festivals like SHIP? Because, okay, I understand what the early stage startups are looking for. They're looking for growth in the broad sense of growth, both socially and financially. I understand what investors are looking for. They're like putting the money. But if middle stage, more or less stable, why to come to this kind of festivals?
Fun. You cannot separate personal life from the work life in the startup scene. So if there's an opportunity to combine something that is fun and that's something that is potentially very useful also, then do it immediately. And it's a very stressful journey that you go through. So anything that makes it more fun and more sort of life experience, even if your startup would fail, even if you wouldn't materialize a startup. But if you have been in one of these events, been part of the community, been here, having these discussions, going through these challenges, hearing stories, it's a life-changing experience for many. It's about also personal growth.
Okay. And now I feel that it's a good time to invite you to Tampere, 3rd of October, where we have Stream Startup Festival.
Okay, fantastic.
Unless you have already bought your ticket, please, this is just the time.
Oh, cool.
Probably you'll have some new ideas, meet new people, and of course we always promise fun.
Brilliant. I've not been one of your events, but I'll definitely look into it.
It's 3rd of October and you're mostly welcome.
Brilliant. Thank you for the invitation.
But back to the SHIP. It's not your first year here. And how do you generally see the festival in a sense of development? What are the changes? Obviously there are new faces, but maybe there are some more like trackable changes, like what kind of field startup goes nowadays compared to like a couple of years ago, or maybe the quantity of people who do startups. Maybe they're younger, maybe they're older, maybe they're more international, whatever. Like what are the changes compared to your previous experience with SHIP?
I think as with any industry, if you will, that I use this kind of a description, the startup industry or the startup scene or whatever starts to grow and eventually becomes more mature and more adult in one way or the other. I feel that a lot of the early days of the startup scene, you had a lot of pure passionate energy rather than competency. And then the events were exactly like that, sort of a lot of things all over the place and not necessarily everything working, and the technical level of everything had not from the teams or the pitchers was not particularly high, but everybody was learning, and because we learned together every single year, it's been more competent, more professional, more focused, calmer, everything sort of like. I think that we have reached a certain level of maturity. We have tried out different things, that what thing doesn't work, what can be done better, and so forth and so forth. So in one sense I could say that maybe some of the hype of the early days and completely unrealistic expectations have been replaced with much more solid startup teams, much more solid founders, much more expectations to reality fits within the teams and the discussions in here. So it's a natural transition for any kind of an organization that grows and learns and becomes better what it's doing.
Right. And today we have startups from Tribe Tampere community pitching. What do you call it during SHIP? Is it?
Batches, I think.
Batches.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Right. So our guys are pitching and we wish them good luck. And probably by the time the episode is released, we'll get some details about how was it for them. But I just wanted to ask you, could you give some advice to the startups who are pitching in front of the jurors?
How much do we have time?
Like 1-2 minutes.
Practice, blah, blah, blah. Pitching is an art. Some people are having the skills and the grace and all you need. Nice voice, good presence, long people, whatever. Something to build up with charisma. But that alone doesn't get you very far. You can learn the art of pitching. Some people can be trained to be super pitchers. The type of people that can actually raise money from a stage by just being themselves, like Kuro Distillery guys. I mean, incredible guys on stage to pitch, and you can even forget what they want to sell you. You just want to give them money. And then there are some, like, comes from an engineering background. You will never become a stage performer. You will never become a stand-up comedian who gets the audience laughing and engaged. But you deliver a solid pitch. That becomes clear what it's all about. Is it a good case? And they get to the next stage, which is the important talk to an investor.
And what is the classical mistake for a startup when pitching?
If you talk about early stage pitchers, getting the focus wrong. It's very difficult to choose what to focus on when you don't have much to build on. When you don't have much to build on, there are so many opportunities to choose the focus from, and then it becomes an exercise in being laser sharp in, like, what do I want to say? What do I want to get out of this pitch? Most people, obviously, when you start pitching, you go with the template. Here's my business model, here's my this and that. And that's the right way to go about it. But if you don't have any of them, maybe, just maybe, and this is unorthodox suggestion, if you don't really have these things, maybe focus on that one ask that you want to give. I'm at this stage, I know I'm missing these things, I don't have anything ready, but I'm now looking for this, but this is the idea, and this is how I would get to the next stage, if you are that early. Obviously, if you are the late stage startup, you are already incorporated and you have done several times of pitching, then deliver and stick to that thing. If you know that you are not yet investment ready, make the pitch about the ask you have. Like, I want to find a co-founding partner, I need to see CTO, I need to test this, how do I get this product up and running, or is there anybody who I could work together with to become the first user or whatever. So I think that would take a lot of the early stage pitches maybe to the next level, make them more meaningful than trying to sort of force them into the pitch format that doesn't really make sense at the stage they are in.
Thank you. That was something for me also to think about and reconsider the pitches I hear and also the pitches I do. Thank you very much for the interview, Tuukka. Thank you.
Mind you, take that with a pinch of salt. I'm usually known for being unorthodox, and my suggestion is not necessarily a cup of tea for everyone, but that's also a part of the startup scene as such. It's diverse field. I
mean, within Tribecast, we really believe in collecting people's voices and giving the actual voice to ecosystem. So every opinion matters, every opinion counts, and every opinion is welcome. Thank you very much for the interview, Tuukka. Hope you enjoy the rest of the Startup Festival, and we'll see you around during the event.
Thank you so much.
My second guest for this episode is Valeriia, who is Tribe Tampere Community Event Lead and the lead of Tampere Sustainability Startup Weekend. This girl is just so full of energy, I should say. By the way, if you feel that you have the craving for meeting new people, the desire to learn about startup ecosystem combined with some free time, check our recruitment information, because Tribe Tampere Community is looking for volunteers, and from this August on we will have a week of recruitment every month. So follow us on social media. And now, hello Valeriia, please tell our listeners a few things about yourself.
Hi Marina, it's great to be here today. My name is Valeriia. As it has been mentioned previously, I'm event lead here in Tribe Tampere. I've been actually quite active in Tribe Tampere community before joining the core team. And currently I'm working on Startup Weekend Sustainability, which will take place here in September in Tampere.
Probably we can go a bit more back into your biography. Do you happen to remember when was the first time you heard about Tribe Tampere, and how did this story started to you?
It was actually very random, I would say. My Tribe Tampere journey started 1 year ago when I joined Tribecast and Startup World Cup volunteer team. And ever since, I think I was quite active in other events which took place in Tribe Tampere. And so, yeah, that's how I joined the family.
Right. And now we're doing lots of cool stuff together. And one of the projects which is coming and which is pretty much led by Valeriia on her own, though you do have an interesting team there, is Sustainability Startup Weekend. I know that the actual concept of Startup Weekend has quite an international history. Before we come to the thing which will happen in Tampere in September, could you please tell our listeners a few things about what's behind?
Yes, that's right. The Startup Weekend is a global event. It's one of the projects of Techstars, which is a seed accelerator. And they also have plenty of other projects going on, but Startup Weekend is one of, I would say, the biggest one. Basically, the idea of the event that we think the course of 54 hours, attendees will experience the life of a startup, basically try